Well, good evening. As you can see, I'm back in the van, and for the second time this week I am out on a night shoot because, well, we've got a clear sky forecast, which is wonderful, and it's August, middle of August, which means we've still got Milky Way core. And it also means that we've got some good dark skies. Now, for years I have been trying to get a decent Milky Way shot in the New Forest. And for one reason or another, it's really just never been satisfactory. Whether it be the atmospherics have not been right, there's just been too much air glow. You know, there's been some wispy high level cloud, all sorts of reasons. So the last time I managed to get out in August was to shoot the Perseid meteor shower, probably 2 or 3 years back, as in August in the New Forest. And I didn't come away with any significant meteor shots that time, but what I did come away with was one of my favourite ever shots that I put in this year's calendar, where in the dark, unable to see it, I got photobombed by a white horse drinking at the small lake where I was photographing. And I didn't know it until I came to edit the photos afterwards and the images afterwards. And so you never quite know what you're going to get. And I don't know what I'm going to get tonight, but I am going to do my best to get a reasonable Milky Way shot. Now, it isn't a given that this is going to work because of the potential for light pollution. Now I'm going to a location I've been to before, where I photographed one of my favourite oak trees, and I light painted it, so I'm bringing my lights again this evening, but I am hoping that within the image I will be able to frame this tree alongside the Milky Way. And so we'll see how that goes, but that is the plan for this evening. And when I get there, hopefully, if I have time, I will talk you through the plan of exactly how I'm going to go about the shoot. So I'll catch you there in a little while. Hi, I'm just stepping in here briefly with a quick explanation of what goes on from this point. So in this video, mostly I'm going to be looking at the prep and setup for the night shoot. So that's as part of it that you might find interesting. I'll put some chapter markers in for these things, by the way. So prep and setup. Then the shooting itself. Particularly also how I set up the move, shoot, move tracker for doing my tracked sky shots. And then at the end I do show a comparison of 3 almost identical shots. They've all got the same foreground that's been put together using a number of light painted images, but what's different in each of them is how the sky has been shot. So the first one has 16 stacked sky shots, each shot at 20 seconds with quite a high ISO of about 8000. The second one has 7 stacked sky shots with a much lower ISO of 800 and 90-second exposure time with the move, shoot, move tracker. And then just for a bit of fun, as I was just before I put everything away, I thought, why don't I see how far I can push this move, shoot, move tracker? And so I did a shot for 300 seconds, 5 minutes, and reduced the ISO to 400. And I'd be interested in your reactions in the comments below once you've seen those, as to what you think about the differences in the quality of the sky, particularly from each of those different ways of shooting it. Okay, enough of an interruption. Let's get back to the video. Okay, so here I am on site, and over here, over my shoulder, is I think one of my favourite oak trees in the forest, because it stands on its own, it's got a nice shape, and the first thing that I do when I arrive on a scene is I just need to check the direction of the Milky Way. Tonight it is going to be pretty much directly behind you as you look at me from here. So I've done a number of things here to try and minimize the chances of me somehow losing my setup and this framing during the evening, because sometimes you find that you've forgotten something that you really needed to get sorted before you started, and you've forgotten about it. So, like for example, at the moment I haven't put the filter holder on the front of the camera, so I'm going to do that in a moment. And you know, so just stuff like that crops up all the time if you're not careful. And sorry about that. Every time you move your or touch your camera, there's the chance that you're going to mess up your framing. Now that doesn't matter if you're just taking one photograph, but if you're going to take a lot of photographs over the course of the night, and they all need to reference that same position, then you need to do as much as you can to make sure you're not going to disturb that setup. And I've also extended my the L bracket rather, so that there's room to put in, to still plug in my power supply, because I don't want to run out of battery and have to change the battery, because that means moving the camera. So I've got a USB-C power supply here, and the Nikon Z6 Mark II can take that and draw power from this during the evening or during the night. I've also already plugged in my remote shutter release. I've got a low position. It's not massively low. The camera is probably about 2 feet off the ground, and to ensure I've got as much stability as possible, I have put the legs out into their sort of medium width position. Also, you want to make sure that all of the various things that the camera is mounted on, so the ball head, for example, and I also have here a leveling mount, that all of the knobs on these are tight. So I've now got that as stable as I think I'm going to get it. I've checked my framing as well. I've made sure that in this shot that I've got good visibility all the way around this tree. So there's nothing of that tree that's not going to be in the shot, because that would be a shame. I don't want to get back later or early tomorrow morning, look at my shots and find there's a branch just on the left hand side that's just poking out of the frame. So take your time to get things set up, minimize your need to move the camera as well during the shoot, and that way, particularly if you're doing things like light painting and you're going to be blending a different sky background with this, that you make sure that you haven't got to move the camera at all during the shoot, and that way you've got the best chance of it all lining up when you come to do your post-processing. Okay, enough of that, but that's how I would set up for a shot. Okay, so I've done my foreground shots, and it's pretty properly dark now. It's 25 to 11, so we're just about 10 minutes off end of nautical twilight, which is great, just in time. Which means I can start setting up now for my shots of the Milky Way, and also repurpose now my low-level lamps, LED panels, on the other image, shooting in the other direction, towards where the radiant of origin of the Perseid meteor shower is, and just to make the image more interesting, and see what we can do with that one, and then I'll set up for our Milky Way images. So actually I just meant to mention, so I've been wandering around actually with a combination of the low-level light on the tree, some shots with just the low-level lighting, fixed lighting, and also with my trusty torch. So this also has an amber filter over it as well. Now when I start to shoot shots of the Milky Way though, I'm going to put my natural night filter on, but I didn't want that on for the foreground because it does make quite a magenta colour cast when I'm shooting with these lamps and with this torch with the amber filters on. So I haven't been using that for the foreground shots, but I will use them for the Milky Way shots. So I'm going to carry on, set up a few other things, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so the plan is coming together. I can't show you directly because it's mid-shoot. So I've set up a stack of shots on the interval timer, 16 shots, taken from the same position towards the tree with the Milky Way, hopefully in exactly the position I was expecting it to be earlier. I'm pretty sure that it is actually. I've got the ISO a bit higher than I usually do, and that's really because we're not in quite such a dark sky area, so I've had to put it up to 6000. f2.8 on the lens. It's the Laowa 15mm f2 lens, so I put it on f2.8, and that just helps with a little bit with sharpness and not going to its full widest aperture, and shutter speed of 20. So I've set up 16 shots at 22-second intervals, and when it's done that, I'm going to go about 65 yards to my right where I can get a clear view of the Milky Way, and I'll do some longer exposures there, probably with the tracker. Okay, so the shoot's going well actually. I'm really pleased with the composition so far. So I've done a Milky Way shot, well, series of shots. Again, I've done a stack of 16. Again, still quite high ISO, in fact 8000 ISO, which is very high for me, but I'm determined to try and get some detail in this Milky Way. So we'll see how that goes. So I've done 16 sets of 16 stacked shots at different ISOs from the position of the composition of the tree, and I've now done a stack of 16 shots just of the Milky Way. So I can choose between them, and then I've got light painted shots and non-light painted shots of the foreground. So I've got lots of options open now when it comes to how I post-process all of these shots. I'll end up with one or two compositions that will be very similar but lit very differently. So what I'm going to try now, I've brought my tracker with me, and so because we've still got we've still got time to do it, I'm going to set up the tracker, and I'm going to do some longer exposures with lower ISOs and see how that helps in terms of noise reduction and getting a nice clean shot of the Milky Way. So I'm going to set that up. When I've set it up, I'll just quickly talk you through it. So our starting point here is the levelling head, and we want to make sure as far as possible that that has been set nice and level. Okay, so next we've got, let's see if I can get some proper light on this actually. Yeah. So next we've got the wedge. I have also put on here a panoramic base so that I can simply turn this to approximately the right direction. Okay, so now I have the I've got the tracker on the wedge here. So as you can see now, the bull head is on top of the tracker, and I've oriented it so that the notch in it allows me, if necessary, see if I can get a view of that here, look, allows me to tilt, get a lot of tilt on the camera, because I want to avoid using a Z mount here. I've got the Allen Wallace Z mount, but I have found it introduces quite a lot more potential movement into the system. So the fewer things I can have on here, the more solid the setup is. Now, because I have a clear view of the North Star Polaris here, I've simply used the laser here to align that. So I'm pretty much come to the end of my evening of photography, and I think as new forest ones go, it's been quite successful. I'm going to be really interested to see how it all works out. I thought what I would do though is just talk you finally through how I set up the tracker unit and what I did with it. So let's just have a quick look at that. If I can successfully show it to you. I think you can see it and you can see me, hopefully. I think I explained earlier I'd put the leveling base on it, and then I put this panoramic head, and that made aligning just incredibly simple. So obviously you make sure the whole thing is as level as possible, and then the panoramic head lets you orientate towards the North Star really easily. And that's important because the wedge here, these fiddly little knobs on either side of it, these gears on either side of it, have quite a small amount of latitude in them in terms of being able to swing one way or another. So you've got to get it fairly well lined up with Polaris to start with. And then we've got the tracker, of course, move, shoot, move tracker, standard bull head, a good strong one, and then camera on top of that. And then I've got a filter holder on here, and again I've still got the natural night filter on that from Nissi. Now I tried, I started off with shots at 90 seconds with the once I was happy that I'd got the framing that I wanted, I set shots at 90 seconds, and they were fine, they were sharp. So I did 7 of those, I think, another 6 of those, so 7 in total, and I'll be able to stack those. So I'll have 7 times 90, which 630 seconds worth of data there. So that's what, 10.5 minutes worth of data there. So that should give me a lot of detail and colour in the Milky Way. I then also shot 180 seconds, which is 3 minutes, and also a 5-minute shot. Now the 5-minute one was the last one that I did, and let's just see if that one is sharp. Do you know it is? It's amazing. It looks sharp on the back of the screen, and if it is when I get it on the computer, I'm going to be amazed, because setting this up with the laser level, I mean, it literally took me less than half a minute to align that to Polaris. I didn't use anything other than the laser, and just pointed it straight at Polaris. So either it's just blind luck, or I don't know, it's worked out really well. I mean, it's a pretty wide angle lens, it's 15mm, so you know, you should be able to get away with a fair amount of movement, a fair amount actually. If I was using a longer focal length, then I'd have had to be a lot more accurate. But yeah, no polarscope, nothing like that. So really pleased with the night shooting. It is now, what's the time? It's 12:15. I think I've done what I needed to do tonight. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back and process these, and I'll probably do a separate video just on the processing, because I've had a number of people recently, either through Facebook or through YouTube, ask me how I did this or how I did that, and I'm really happy to share some of this information, but particularly how I'm now processing the Milky Way, because I'm as pleased as I ever have been on how the Milky Way is coming out in my shots at the moment. So I've really made a lot of changes in the last year or so to how I process them and what software I'm using. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, I'm going to show you a couple of choice images from this evening. Oh, and one last thing. I took 250 odd frames with the other camera tonight, hoping to get a Meteor. I finally got one on shot, 240. So I got one Meteor, but it has green. It's got some green color in it, which is great. I mean, it's quite short, unfortunately, but you know, it's a Meteor. It is a Perseid Meteor, and I'm quite chuffed about that. Great. Okay, so anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you'll join me next time. In the meantime, please do like, subscribe, share, and all those wonderful good YouTube things, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.